Hello, and welcome to the 9th Fresno State Violin and Viola Festival. Today, we're presenting to you a masterclass with one of our guest artists, an incredible musician, a violist, a recording artist, and a composer, professor from the University of Washington School of Music, Melia Watras. We have 3 students performing for her. These are Linda Tihida, Christian Segura, and Matthew Smoke. Please enjoy.
Okay, I'm back. Yes, only those first 4 bars, but with open strings.
With open strings? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. I don't know if that's my machine getting all this feedback, but yes, that was very nice, Linda. Now try only playing open strings though.
Okay.
good, Linda. One more time and a little bit faster, and allow yourself to get a little lower in the bow. It's a little too in the, I don't know, for me, I love being the lower half, but it's because then I can get my pinky more involved. It can help with this lift in and out of the string a little more. Try it one more time, open strings, and really thinking of a dance feeling. That's it. That's already better. Linda, one thing I can see is it almost looks like your elbow is a little too high. Now, height of an elbow it depends on what string you're on, and it depends on the size of your arm, all these sort of things. But what I'm saying is that yours almost looks like it's torquing your right shoulder a little bit. So just a little more. Could you put your arm out in a plane? Yeah, just let it be in a plane with your, yeah, that's better. That's better, Linda. Good. Yeah, okay, we're getting there. Good. So always think, your professor told me you're a painter, right?
Yeah.
How exciting. That's just, I think that's super cool. So one thing, Linda, to think about is, for me in Baroque music, your paintbrush is going to be your bow and the articulations that you do with the bow. So it's also, since you're not using vibrato, it's really going to be the key. I mean, if that's what you choose, it's really going to be the key to life in the sound and how you can pick things up. So really think that there's a little space. Anytime you put a slur, what you're doing is you're marking where there's a little articulation. Okay? All right, let's go. Now let's add the left hand and play those first four bars. Very nice, good. And then get ready for the next part. Can you guys hear that, or is it just me with the feedback? You don't hear anything, Linda? Okay, good. Sorry. I must have hit a button on my computer or something. Good. And you're getting more space in there, which I like. In all those. Do you hear there's a slight little clip? Dee-da, dee-da, ba-da.
Yeah.
Try those 4 bars again. And even though you're only going to play 4 bars, you're thinking of what's going to happen in bar 5 so that there's not a funny pause, even when you're just playing 4 bars.
Okay.
Nice. Yes, good. Make sure not to spend too much on that half note. Otherwise, you're going to be so far out in the bow, it's going to be a little hard to come back. But this is sounding very good, Linda. Okay, let's do the next 4 bars. So do the same thing, just with open strings.
Okay.
And thinking of the weight of the bow, of the bar.
Right.
Good. And Bach is but the genius of Bach is that it can take a lot. So if however people want to play it, romantic style, pure performance practice, from the whole gamut, jazz, I've even heard, it always sounds good. That means that this is some pretty amazing music, right? Because it's so flexible, it can take all of that. But one thing for me is that he's not making music to show virtuosity or just, it's really just like, it's so amazing. It's kind of humble, So as much as you can strip away fussiness, which would be taking maybe too much time at the end of, say, that sequence right there at the end of bar 8 and stuff, we've resolved it on the downbeat. There we are. That's deep. The whole rest of the bar is simply, my beloved teacher Attar used to describe those as like a bow with the showing of the hats or something. You know, it's just easy. Just move it along. Just be as simple as you can. No fussy, no fussy. One more time, just to open strings, and yeah, that's fine. I was just making sure your open strings are good. Yeah, and all of those that you're gonna do, so all of those should have just a little bit more release.
Or release.
Yeah, not, I wouldn't think bounce because the bow doesn't really come out of the string, but yeah, just a little more release. You don't want it, gluing is not, again, not something that we're doing right now. If that's what, you know, you decide later, that's your choice, okay? One more time then, putting in just a little bit more and let yourself get a little lower on the bow. So Linda, when you want to get lower, move this part of your arm. It looks like you don't want to go to the lower half sometimes because you don't want to do this movement, you know, that back of the arm, this right here. Good. Now, okay, when you're, so one practice thing when you are practicing that, we won't do it now because if we were in person, I would do it because you'd have more space, but you're squished and we're looking at each other. But when you're practicing, I find it incredibly helpful to walk in the room so that every bar, I'm actually stepping like a pretty big heavy step, and I overdid that so that I understand that if I take time that makes me walk in a strange way, there's going to be something funky with the timing. For this music, just because we're thinking of a dance, it doesn't mean that it can't slow down and it can't ebb. You could do that with your walk, but it just can't be extreme. It needs to be just subtle things so that somebody could be moving through all of this. You know, let me give you another quick exercise that might help with this lower half. So just because it looks like you're a little reticent for your lower half of the bow, and as a violist and someone maybe who doesn't, I've seen, you know, like some people have like huge arms and like that's so good for viola. I don't have that. So as a person who doesn't have the huge arms, the lower half is your best friend because you can get the most power with the least amount of effort from your body right here, right in this lower part. So if you take your bow, so you see how that binding ends here. So if you think of about a hand width and then move above that. So you're going to hold the bow here. That looks a little high. You only want one hand. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then you're going to take Kreutzer number 2. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, dee-da-dee-da-da. And what you're going to do is you're going to play behind your hand. So you're playing like this. And you never go beyond the binding so that you're really forcing your arm. You know, you're really, like once you do that and you go back to normal playing, you're like, oh, thank goodness. Give it just a little go on any, you know, you could play even just a scale. It's hard on the lower 2 strings, so mainly the D and the A. Try that real quick. See how that feels to you.
Like this?
Go a little bit higher on the stick. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And then,
well, yeah, you can't bow past, no bowing past here. The bow has to be from here to here.
So
that's it. You see how high your arm has to go? You're really getting those, whatever those muscles are. And make sure, Linda, if I was there, I would push your bow up a little bit. You want to make sure to get all the way from the frog. That's it. That's it. Yeah. So try that with Kreutzer too. And, don't do it for the whole etude, because as soon as there's fatigue, just stop. You don't, that's not the point. We don't want to we're not building stuff. We're simply gaining awareness and facility with allowing this part of the arm to move a little bit more in. That's what is blocking you right now from using that lower part, it looks like. Yeah, that looks really good. Let me also, before we end, quickly tell you two other resources, just, because I think it's super interesting. This book I've gotten really interested in, and it's Honor Bilsma's Bach, the Fencing Master. And he explains a lot of performance practice, and he has his bowings, and he's comparing with Anna Magdalena. It's just super interesting, and lately I'm a little obsessed with it. So you could either order this, or you could ask your professor, Torrin Immonen, if your library could order it, and then you could check it out or something like that. But it's a really great book. Oh, do you already have it? Do you already know it?
No, I was just looking at Dr. Torrin.
Okay. I've closed everybody off so I can see your left hand. And the other thing is, there's a site called, so we have a fabulous Baroque ensemble director and here at UW, and she told me about a site that I use all the time now. It's so cool. It's the Netherlands Bach Society is putting it together, and it's called All of Bach. The first time I heard it, I thought she was saying Olive Bach, but it's ALLOF Bach. And what they're doing is recording all of Bach's works, performance practice style, and it's beautifully done. And then you can hear when I'm, just again, with everything put together, when you read about these things, it's the same thing that I'm talking about with that you're not taking a test, you're making choices. You're going to live with this piece. These pieces are incredible. They are lifelong pieces. So your concepts about them are going to change. So maybe sometimes you want to play them totally romantically. Sometimes you want to do it's all, as I said, Bach can take it. It's the genius of Bach. So, but knowing the information and getting that into your system and part of your outlook and awareness, whether you use it or not, I think is an important thing. So, yeah. Any questions from you, Linda?
Well, I was gonna ask you about, I do have a tendency to not play on the lower part of my bow, but you answered my question. Yeah, maybe a broader question at the end, but you covered all of it that I needed, so thank you.
Okay, yeah, great. You bet. Anytime, Linda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to our next student will be Christian Segura. He will be playing a Hindemith Sonata for Viola Solo No. 1, first 3 movements of this sonata. Christian is a sophomore at Fresno State, as well as Linda. And hopefully you can turn your video on and join us. Yes, wonderful. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Christian.
Hello.
Christian, how would you like to do this? Do you want a performance? Do you want to play all of them, or 1, 2, and 3 in a row?
Yeah, I'll probably do that.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Christian. Great. I can tell you really like this music, which is wonderful. It's such a, as a violist, it sure is an amazing piece for us. Can you tell me, as you play the piece, do you have problems with fatigue? Like, are your muscles getting tired while you're playing it?
Usually only when I play in front of people.
Uh-huh.
It's like really tense.
Yes. Okay. I was wondering if that's also in your practice room. Yeah. It's both the left hand and the right hand. There is, yeah, a lot of tension. And that is, if that's coming out when you're nervous, that's totally normal. That means it's really good you played today and that they're recording, because then you can watch it and you can look for those things in the mirror in your practice room, and you can keep looking for opportunities that make you uncomfortable to play in situations that are uncomfortable for you, so that you can learn how to change what's happening. I mean, I say change, but it's like on one level you have to accept it because things aren't going away. But as soon as you accept, usually then there's a softening and things can go a little more. Yeah, for me, your sound world is basically, the basic sound world is very good. I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, maybe, because I think you can take some and not take some and work on whatever you want. So why I was asking about fatigue, in addition, is because I see that the shoulders and everything seems to be up a little bit. So, and that this piece is huge. I mean, the sound, this is definitely related to Bach. There's no question that Hindemith, I mean, it almost opens like in a chaconne type style. It's not on the second beat, but it is, you know, these powerful chords. And you have to maintain this for 2 more movements after what you just played. And it's going to be that wicked fast 4th movement in between. So you need to find ways to produce power, because this sound profile is very, you know, we were working on not being gluey and spinning the sound up for the minuet with Linda. Obviously that's not the case. And you know that because your sound profile is good. With the bow, maybe think about, have you ever done Alexander technique?
No.
It's really wonderful. Obviously it depends on your teacher. It always depends on the teacher, how they're able to communicate. But if you ever have an opportunity to take Alexander technique with someone, I found it really, really helpful. They have a way of thinking about the spine that a string is attached to the top of your spine and it's going to the ceiling so that you're being drawn up, but then everything else falls. So what you're doing is you're finding a natural way to hold the body that doesn't take any force. And this is the big thing, I think, for you, not just with the bow arm, but the left hand. What your movements are inefficient, essentially, is what I'm saying. So the bow, there's tension that's forcing the sound this way, and that is very difficult to maintain. If you can find a way to use gravity, and obviously you have to go against gravity at some point because it will be a puddle on the floor, but you know, that your natural, finding a way to naturally move and to use your natural arm weight, because it looks like you have some nice arm weight, let that natural hang. With the left hand, if you can find a way, your first finger in particular seems to splay out. Look at the great players. Look, Tara Rod is one. It's totally efficient left hand. It's like, it almost looks like there's no movement, you know? Or you look at Primrose playing the Paganini online. It looks like this. And out comes this incredible sound and speed. It's because it's completely efficient. Don't move muscles that you don't need to move. So with the first finger, if you've done this, it's completely in a position that's not a playing position. So I can't ever come back to that first finger. A first finger, if you're not using it, I generally keep the notes down, because then you can play very fast. But just lifting a finger instead of having to reposition fingers to put it down. Does that make sense? As I said, I'm just going to throw a bunch of stuff out, and then you can take some stuff. The other thing I think, Christian, is with the tension, it sounds to me that you're squeezing with your bow hand, that you're squeezing with your thumb. Does your thumb get tired or have ridges after you practice?
Yeah.
That is telling you something. So you want the weight to come down, not up, because you want all your arm weight to come this way, not up. If you're pushing with your thumb, you're working against yourself. Not only that, but that's, I think, what might be causing, there's a funny gap in your sound between bow changes. It's as if it could be two things. It could be that the line of your elbow is not in line with the string, which causes a lift, or it could be your pressure of the hand, which causes a rigidity in the right hand, which means it won't be soft and pliable for the turnaround. Not that you have to do anything fancy. I mean, I feel like David Sawyer of the Granary String Quartet. Do you know David Sawyer?
No.
Do you know the Granary String Quartet?
I've heard like recordings.
Yes, of course. So he was the cellist for like so many years, decades. Somebody asked him, how do you have such a smooth bow change? It's so beautiful. And he said, I get to one end and I turn around and go the other way. So I love that simplicity. But do pay attention to your bow changes. I think that'll help raise the level. Okay. Christian, can you tell me one thing too? So if we're thinking of the deep, broad, powerful sound, and you're already thinking of a more efficient left hand so that you can play some of these passages with a little more facility, and then you're thinking of relaxing the bow arm, what's another technique that you can do, that you could look at, that will help increase your ring, your deep sound?
More vibrato.
Vibrato is a good thing, yeah, for sure, in this piece. What else? No ideas? It's okay. Intonation. If you can get your intonation to ring with your open strings, since you're playing alone, you can match your open strings. You play with a piano, okay, you can't always match your open strings if it's gonna, because the piano's equal temperament. We have a choice of what intonation systems we want to use. Since you're playing by yourself, you can play with just intonation whenever possible. That's going to make a ring. As soon as it's out of tune with itself, that cuts the ring. It doesn't allow it to spin. You're spinning the sound from the string, but you're also spinning the harmonies. You ever hear that sound when you get something super in tune, like a fourth or a fifth, super in tune, and there's a weird, or even thirds, when you get them perfectly in tune, there's a weird buzz. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the Tartini thirds, that's what you should go for. So let's take a look at these opening bars. I'm going to keep my notes just to make sure we can, yeah. Okay, let's do this opening bars. Just the first two bars. Better. So what's one chord that you really have to watch out for intonation?
The second one, the fifth.
Yeah, that is a good one. There's another one.
The third one, the sixth.
That's right. So what does the E need to do to be more in tune with the G?
That needs to be higher?
A little bit lower. Just with the A. Yeah, you wanted to. Have you ever done that? Like experimented with how much you have to move your fingers to match open strings? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty fun actually. Okay, so let's tune that third chord real quick. It won't take much time. Okay, I like the E. I didn't like the C sharp at all. Get the C sharp in tune. Right. Be a little softer with your left hand so that finding a position that's, because it's a little like this, right? It's not as turned, it's a little turned out in order to get it, right? To get it. So let your hand be soft. Right. Get that. Let's do it one more time slowly. Tell me, were you happy with that C sharp?
No.
Yeah. Good. Now keep your hand there without squeezing and play it a few times fully. That's it. Do you hear? And try to open up the sound even more. Get it really nice and deep. Better. Good. Great. Now go from the fifth. Go from the fifth to that C sharp with the open G. Good. And make it beautiful. You know, really, there's beauty in the tension of that. Good. And now add the E. You're not using a first finger for the E, are you?
No.
Yeah, it looks like you're moving your hand. You don't need to move your hand. Once you put that C sharp, you should be in position. Try this once, Christian. Try going from. Feel the spacing just from that fifth to where the E is. So Christian, don't play the C sharp. Tell me, so if your first finger's on E flat, what do you have to do to get that E natural?
Just go up.
Yeah, it's that simple. So don't make it big. Just put the second finger down gently, right a half step above. And then what you're going to do is move that first finger over a couple strings. Think of it really calmly. Oh, my left hand is not going to be doing anything but this. That's all it's doing. But you want it to be beautiful. So still practice. Get that first. And soften your left hand still looks a little tense. See if you can soften it. And keep in mind your E is just a little too low right now to your open G. Every time you hit the note, store that information away. Oh, I'm hitting it too low. Too low. Here where it needs to be, and then put the finger there, and only there. Much, much better. Good. Try a little lower in the bow so you don't have to work so hard. Better. Keep your eye on the fifth. Good. All right. Now add that C sharp. And remember, Christian, don't move. Okay, they have the high speed. Have you ever seen those high speed films of high fits when he's playing?
No.
Oh, I bet they have it on YouTube. I saw it when I was little. Oh my gosh, it's insane. I mean, his fingers are so elegant. It's like so precise on where they need to go. And he moves, if he misses it, he can move so fast, nobody knows. Don't think like that. We're not high fits. So think that when you put your finger down, that's it. Don't move. So aim for, that way you're kind of programming your mind. That E needs to be a little higher. And that C sharp needs to be, I forget which way it needs to be for you, but you know from practicing it, so that you go from the fifth to boom, you know that space. You can feel that space between the fingers. Try it one more time. Yes, that's it. And maybe if you want to release the C sharp when you go to the E, go ahead and release it. But just make sure the finger doesn't splay back. But you don't want to be squeezing. Squeezing is incredibly not helpful. It's going to make you play slowly. All right, that was beautifully in tune. Okay, and so in your practice, so your Professor Lowenheim, he was at IU when I was there, and Janos Starker was like a legend. And so for all of us, whether we studied with him or not, somehow we were affected by Janos Starker. But Janos Starker always used to say, you know, if you get it once, I'm not having the exact wording, but it's like an amateur can hit it once out of 10 times. But you want to be a professional, you need to hit it 10 times out of 10 times. So you have to practice. If you hit it once, okay, you got it. Now keep that sensation of the space of the fingers, of where it was in tune, and then do it again. You could do it 5 to 10 times in a row correctly before you move on. Just make sure that you don't flit it away and be, oh, I got it. Okay, I'm done. No, that's not going to help you maintain the good intonation. Okay, but right now we're moving on. So play now these first 2 bars again, and think of the ring of the instrument. Try as much as you can, relaxing with the bow arm, and having a softer left hand. Wow, that was so much more in tune to me, and it sounded already, when it's in tune, it makes it really nice. It's playing in tune is a good thing. Okay, Christian, tell me, so if say you were starting the Bashikon, that kind of power, that kind of gravitas, can you do something like that with this opening? Because right now it sounds, I'm not sure why you're extending that third beat quite so long. This, unlike the minuet that we were working with Linda, there's no inequality of stress. In fact, he writes dash, 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 right? So that fifth needs to be really strong. But I just want you to think about your pacing and the overall effect. This is the first thing people are going to hear. And I'll tell you, it's hard to recover in a audition, or like, really, who cares about auditions in the end? But you know, in a performance, you want to immediately get people's attention, right? So give us some and get it in tune. So play this opening with a little more feeling of, you are introducing some powerful chords. These chords are going to keep coming back throughout this movement, right? He's using them towards the end as something that totally interjects the other material, right? These are power chords. Go one more time. Yes, I like that very much, Christian. I'm not convinced musically of why that third beat is so long, but overall, I like it very much. I'm thinking. And something really heavy, right? That last third beat is long because it's tied over. So don't give it away so soon that third beat of the first bar is too long. roll, get off, make it as powerful and equal as the others, and then move on. Try it one more time. That's the idea. Maybe one thing, when you're moving on, you can hide it. Sorry. Maybe use the ring from the G string spin to sustain it through. So, and it's a little bit like if you're that the retake doesn't take quite as much time as you're giving it. Don't make it sound so easy. Okay, so if you go right, that tells me, oh, I finished. Oh, that's a nice round retake. Don't make it so nice. I like that chord very much. I think you could do, I think the retake could be a little bit faster. Try it just one last time. Maybe now it's just getting a little too chopped, and I'm not quite convinced by the road we're going down with this, with the retake. You know, one thing I would say, do you know that Hindemith has a recording of this online?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so have you listened to that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, obviously if you do, it was there. Okay, good. So can you imagine him playing that retake? Can you imagine that sound? See if you can conjure him up. Yeah, that's the idea. Listen, do you record yourself, Christian? Yeah, it's so helpful, isn't it? I find it unbelievably helpful. It's your best teacher. Really, it's your best teacher because you have the fantastic guidance of Professor Torn Immerman, and she can tell you, and I'm sure she does, but you're the one that has to do it. You're the one, so if you don't hear it, you won't know how to fix it. So it's so important that you identify, like in your lesson, if she's telling you something, it's so important that you record yourself and listen for what she's talking about. So I want you to listen to this retake. I want you to listen to the record yourself. I guess you can listen to this and then listen to the way the retake is sounding for you. And then listen to all the greats play this sonata. Try to get an idea, even of that little tiny little detail, like what do other people do? It's a little, because right now it's still a little too clipped for me. But I wanted you to get out of the habit of how much time you're doing with that third beat. Okay, Christian, I want to also just quickly talk about a couple other things. Professor Torn Immerman, how much time should I give, like 5 more minutes, do you think?
Sure, we have till 5:30, as long as you can give us, we can have more lessons and less for Q&A or vice versa. So
whatever, yeah, you can stop me if it's getting too long and I'm not, okay, yeah, okay, got it, good, I got it, thank you. Okay, so Christian, another great thing, so my beloved mentor did for me is that, all right, so talk to your professor to make sure this is okay with her. But when you're playing a big piece like this, my professor even believes that you don't play scales anymore. You play your scales from your pieces. So, and the point of that is, I know I say that, and a lot of people then it's like, okay, I lose them completely, because it's like that concept is like not allowed sometimes. But I found it so helpful for me because I was spending an hour and a half practicing scales instead of my pieces. And then and his other point of why you do that is, I mean, that's not his main point. His main point is that you practice the technique in your piece, and then you make sure there's a musical end, so that Attar believes in connecting the music with the technique immediately. Like, so separating too much, like, be careful about how much you separate. So you work with your professor on what works for you. Some things I do with my undergrads are, yeah, they're for sure on scales, but not my master's students normally. By then I try to do, because I don't play scales anymore. This is being recorded and I just realized I said that. One thing you can do is you could ease off, like, to kind of bridge that, is that you could do one day of your scales, and then the next day of your practice, you do the scales from the pieces. So, for example, one amazing section for you would be in the second movement. I wish I wrote in bar numbers, but in the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in like the sixth line, all those triplets. Wow, what an amazing teacher that is, right? So, and the fluidity of changing between each of those strings, and the ease of it's just, that's covering a lot of strings very quickly. So that already is covering a lot of stuff. And then, like, you could concentrate on your left hand. I would suggest that you practice with a mirror. I'm sure you already do. And so when you look at that left hand, is there ever a splayed position? That's not a useful position. In fact, that's a detrimental position. So if you see that, you stop and you can relax it. The other thing I would say, Christian, is, do you like to read?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read Günter Grass?
No.
So he's a German author. He's a little later, probably like a generation, 30 years or something after Hindemith. But Attar would always he had me read The Tin Drum, which is one of Günter Grass's, one of his great books. He has a lot of great books, but it helps with the mindset. It's my favorite thing to do. It's like I'm working, but I'm outside of my element. And I find that incredibly beneficial, so that if you read that novel or any other novel by Günter Grass, that you get an idea of the world of where Hindemith is coming from, and then it can help balance things out. The other thing I love is ballet. And Balanchine, do you know who Balanchine was?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a legendary choreographer. He's in America. I can say he was arguably the greatest choreographer of the 20th century. He completely revolutionized neoclassical ballet. So, and he worked very closely with Stravinsky, but he also worked with Hindemith. So I show my class videos of, if he did 4 temperaments for TV. So New York City Ballet was Balanchine's company. And when I lived in New York, it was such a joy to go watch City Ballet. You know, we had student tickets, or I think half the time, you can get cheap tickets. And so if you could, I bet they have stuff online. If you could check out a genius like Balanchine's interpretation of Hindemith, it just gives you another perspective, another way in, so that you're totally encompassed in a world of, I'll tell you one thing that Balanchine does is that so in ballet, normally everything is extended, all lines are extended. Well, he shortens them, because I don't have the flexibility with my arm, because I've allowed these to shorten, but their hand movements are all flat, so that he's blocking out things. And then when they do turns, instead of with a beautiful point, one foot is up, so that it gives you a block sort of thing. So he's giving you already like this sort of blockish type visual, and it's quite beautiful. So yeah, looking I also look to actors. When I lived in New York, and actually Seattle's a great theater town. Not during COVID. I mean, they're still doing stuff, but it's hard during COVID. But watching actors, the way that they can get into what their character, or what they're reading or something, that connection between art and action is really important for us. You see it in dancers too. As soon as you don't see the person anymore and you just see the character, that's what you're after when you play this piece. So if just in your daily life you can start to take notice of things that can affect what you're playing, is really fun. So do you have any questions, Christian?
No. Not.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we continue with Matthew Smoke, who will be finishing his degree next year at Fresno State, his bachelor's degree. He will be playing Bach sonata for violin, solo, arranged for viola, the first movement, Adagio.
Beautiful. Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. So, Matthew, the style that you're playing in, I think you're doing it fantastically.
Thank you.
So let's talk about another way that it could be done.
Yeah.
And then you'll just have that in as ideas too. So for me, Matthew, this is like one of my most favorite types of writing, which is that it is improvisation, a written out improvisation, basically, right? It's just it is my absolute favorite. Do you improvise, Matthew?
Yeah, with this I definitely like experiment with a lot of improvisation, just going between each of the chords and like messing around with all of the in between.
I'm so happy to hear that because I'd like you to do some of that for us.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'd like you to do, and I must say, Matthew, too, when I was practicing this, my absolute favorite way is because you get to improvise this.
Yeah.
Practice that. Okay, so let's take those first 4 chords and just play. I would say for right now, okay, I really hope people don't kill me for this, but I'm going to tell you, just take out the vibrato, okay?
Okay.
And the sound profile right now is it's gorgeous. You have a gorgeous sound. It's just a little heavy.
Okay.
Let's just see if it can have more. The fact that Bach chose all the open strings means you can have the instrument work for you more. And we're not after this. He wasn't writing it to be like for the instrumentalist. Oh, look at my sound. At least I don't think. This is my opinion. Okay, so play those chords and play them just. I'm trying to think of the sound profile. Just how can you spin the strings and let them work and play just if you want down, up, however you want bowing wise for all those 4 chords. Good, beautiful. Do it 2 more times, Matthew, and each time a little more ring and a little less pressure from the bow. Drawing out the ring. Good. This sound is something I think is quite beautiful, Matthew. Okay, let's keep doing the chords for 1 second. I want you to get that C of the second chord in tune with your open string, and then really watch that 4th on the top. Just hit that chord once. Good. Now pay attention to the 7th on the bottom. Get that really in tune. Good. Play that chord a couple times. See if you can draw it out. Nice. Oof. That was beautiful. Okay, next chord. Get that F in tune with the G. Get the F a little bit higher. That's it. Now your F is a little too high now. Get it just a little lower. Yeah, good. That's beautiful. For me, Tritones are like impossible to tune.
Yeah.
Never right. It's always wrong. I guess that's why it's the devil's interval. That's beautiful. Okay, now all 4 chords in a row, getting that exact beautiful sound that you just were getting. It's so beautiful. Watch that final C. I'm being super picky, but watch that final C that is just in tune with your open C. One very last time. Oh, and just since we're talking about intonation, and I could go on for intonation for days. I was in the string quartet. That's why.
Oh yeah.
You just tune all that. Oh yeah, you were in a quartet too,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. You spend like all your time tuning.
Oh yeah.
In fact, we had a joke that if somebody was misbehaving or something, or we were playing badly, say we were tired from traveling or something, and we were just playing badly, we're like, okay, if we don't play this in tune the next time through, that means we have to actually spend the time tuning. And suddenly we're all like, okay, because we know it'll take an hour to tune something.
Yeah.
A little thing. Okay, so one more time, really getting that beautiful. Get a wider 6 on that last chord. There you go. Good. Okay, that's it. Your second chord, I think you can do a little better, but you're playing great. Okay, now play a C minor scale for me, just natural minor. And make sure that last C is in tune with your open A. Good. And now play a harmonic minor scale. Good. And now melodic.
No, sorry.
Great. Okay. So you can choose from any of those. If you want, you could keep it in the parameters of what Bach has done, with a natural, C natural minor between the first 2 chords, and then going to harmonic, melodic for the next chord. However you want to do it, but you can choose your notes between any of those 3 chords, play the chord, and then just let it go. Improvise on any of those notes in between, and then get to the next chord. Okay, no. So, Melia, I want you to make something up.
Oh, okay.
Your own improvisation in between those chords. Good. And I'm putting you on the spot, so you're being very brave. Try it again, and don't go to the same note that Bach did. Make it your own. And as you're practicing this way, get further and further away from Bach, and not in sound, but in terms of what notes. So try it again and get to a different. You could even go down low, go from the top down for that first chord. Just make it your own. Good. Now do one more thing for me. Extend the amount of time between the chords. Okay, now, beautiful. We'll talk more in a sec. What I want you to do now is play those 4 chords, improvise in between them.
Oh.
I think we're frozen.
I think so. Okay. Just want to make sure it wasn't me.
Nope.
Oh,
You're
there
back.
she goes. There she is.
okay. So Matthew, did you get that?
No.
Okay, so what I want you to do are those 4 chords, do what we just did, improvise in between, go back to the beginning and play what Buck wrote.
Okay.
Good, beautiful, Matt. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you go by Matt.
Either way, yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so that was beautiful. Tell me, what do you think, how do you feel if you play it in improvisation and then you go back and you play what Bach wrote? What is it that you think that you've learned, and what is it that you're feeling while you play the actual notes on the page?
Yeah, so what I'm feeling after going back, after doing the improvisation, I felt that the in between, so all like the improv, so like that the in between all the chords felt a little bit more free, a little bit less strict than what I was thinking, how I was thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think the goal is when you improvise, when someone is improvising, you don't know what is coming next. You know, sometimes it can be terrifying. You're up on stage and you have no idea what's going to happen. And then suddenly you can see a couple paths open up. Yeah. You know, and then, okay, you know your way for a little while, but then someone or you might play something that was a mistake even, and you can use that, and that takes you on a different path. So it's that not knowing what's coming next that I think is so important for playing a piece that's in a written out improvisation style, because the sound is very different. It is not a secure sound of, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to this chord, and that's even the chords are part of the improvisation. So if you can try to imagine that feeling, that sense of almost questioning or searching and looking in the sound profile, I think it becomes something really fascinating. You want to try it one more time, playing it improvisation, and then go back and then see if you can remember that sensation of Good. Did you feel different? it's the first chord you played when you went back to play it the way Bach wrote it. To me, that was so beautiful. There, I personally like it when you allow something vulnerable in the sound that is not always. Again, it's Bach. He's humble. He's not trying to prove anything. It's not oh, my sound is so amazing. This is my feeling. But that vulnerability, even if the sound is a little less focused, that can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So letting it go just a little bit more often, I think, would be really a beautiful thing. And that it doesn't end heroically then. It could end also the whole piece of like, oh, just something a little more. And when you play that way, it's slightly internal, but you're inviting people in. It's an on stage internal type of thing. The Olive Bach site that I mentioned to Linda, I can't remember the artist who's playing it, but I thought it was pretty outstanding. So if I'd say check out that site, because it's like, whoa. Yeah. Good. Any questions, Matthew?
No, I think that was like basically what I was still kind of like on the fence about, is just all that in between, all the chords, is like, how should I be super, super strict, or which side of the spectrum, kind of playing both sides of the spectrum really helped me kind of feel how it's actually naturally supposed to feel.
Yes, and it's true. You do need to keep an eye on that there is a pulse, because even in improvisation, usually the good improvisations usually do have a pulse. So yeah, but I also think when you're in a practice room, you can let yourself fail. In fact, that can be the thing that you learn the most from. And especially with improvisation, because boy, you can sound bad improvising. You didn't sound bad, but I can sound really bad improvising. And that's the place for it. That's the place to experiment. We don't want to always be, at least I don't want to keep doing the same thing. So that means you're going to fail. So you need to be in the practice room and allow yourself to do that, so that you understand when you're in the practice room and say you're doing improvisation, you didn't like how it turned out. We'll start to figure out why. What was it that didn't work? So record your improvisations like in between here. What is it that didn't work? And then you're also learning some improvisation as well as getting into the Bach. And like I said, you can take it further and further and further. Yeah, it's, plus, like I said, it's one of the most fun things for me. It's reminding me, so I teach an improvisation class, and also in my studio class, we do different projects. And so sometimes we do improvisation for a quarter or something. And one of my students came in and she had her friend play a sarabande, and then she improvised on top of it. And it was so beautiful. So just doing those kind of things, even if you have a recording and you're improvising to the recording, because then you'd have a pulse, somebody would be playing and you're doing something on top of it, but being, allowing the vulnerability, I think, is a beautiful thing on stage, to hear someone allowing themselves to be vulnerable. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you so much, Matthew. It's just really, really beautiful what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a question from the audience to kind of go along the improvisation theme. How did you begin learning to improvise, and do you think it's beneficial to practical viola playing? I would modify it and say it, do you think it's beneficial to any pieces on viola? Do you always try to improvise?
Okay, so let me first talk about the usefulness of improvisation. 100%, I think improvisation, I don't do every piece like this. This week with Matthew, it was simply because this is so close to improvisation that I was simply trying to get the feeling into the piece of improvising. So I don't do that with every piece. But that being said, I think improvising helps playing any piece. Because what it does is so many things. It helps you learn your own instrument. Because you can explore the fingerboard in ways that nobody's telling you. You're simply, you have this in front of you. What are you going to do with it? I also think that improvisation is like breathing. It's something all of us can do. And somehow along the way, we were told we couldn't, at least in my generation. And that's so not true. And I feel in the past 15 years, improvisation is starting to come, and it's making me so happy. So many people are improvising because it is our birthright as performers. And knowing how to improvise, it also means that you can figure out how to incorporate mistakes into your performance, because that's what a great improviser does. They actually take a mistake and make it into something. So, I used to be so afraid to play on stage until I really was improvising, because I'd be like, oh, what if I make a mistake? I don't know. Well, who cares? Like, you're going to make a mistake. So figure out how to incorporate it into what you're doing. And I also used to be so afraid to do something that wasn't already written down on a piece of paper. And I really didn't like having that fear. And so with my students, it's unbelievable what I see blossom, and the creativity. It's astounding how creative every single person is. I just think it's so. It is, all of us can do it. It's not something that's magical. It's and if you play Baroque music, those performers improvised. So Bach was writing for people who knew how to improvise. So it's part of, there's Baroque, there's all different types of improvisation. Our Baroque director actually can teach Baroque improvisation, and she uses an app during COVID called Passaggi. So if you guys are interested, you could check that out. I myself started with improvising when? It happened in two ways simultaneously. I was out of school already, and I was in a professional quartet. And then I had a group of friends in New York who we also started a side group. And one of the people in the group was a composer, and he wanted to, every concert, have improvisation between every written piece. So we started learning improvisation for that. I say we because basically I do everything with my husband. So he was in that group with me. He was in my quartet. And then at the same time that we were doing that, I was writing a piece. I was not writing the piece. I was working with a composer who was writing a piece for me, Richard Carpin, and that piece was based on improvisation. So basically we would get together, we would improvise, and then he would extract and say, let's do this. This is going to be and it was his piece. It just came about through months of improvising together and kind of extracting. And so having two different composers for two different reasons of improvising got me into it, and the floodgates were open.
Got it. They also have a couple technical questions. One person is asking, how can I accelerate my playing without getting out of tune?
So accelerating playing, right now I'm gonna just think about the left hand, since it's probably left hand facility that you're talking about. I would take the prescribed passage that you're talking about and play it extremely slowly, like one note per bow. I do that with every piece. I do one note per bow so that I have time on a very, very long tone to be anticipating the next two notes. And my hand frame should reflect the next two notes that are coming while I'm sustaining a very, very long tone. Also, while you're sustaining a long tone, you can be relaxing, because really tension doesn't help anybody. I can't, unless it's a specific sound quality that you're going for, which could be, unless there's a specific reason to have tension, it doesn't help anything. In fact, it's what slows people down. So getting your fingers in position, making sure they're always relaxed, getting them in a position that plays two notes in front of whatever you're doing. And then I would do rhythms so that you have very short notes next to very long notes, and you can group them in, so many different patterns. I find it useful to do patterns that are actually against what the piece is asking, so that you have a little bit of a brain puzzle. And then so that you're condensing, say if you have sextuplets and you're doing groups of four, that you have four notes, fast notes in a row, so you're preparing for the next four fast notes. And all the time, if it's ever out of tune or ever tension in your left hand, then you have to stop, and you can't go beyond that point. You have to get that amount of work done, just very, very relaxed. Also, then with the bow, I would start doing reversing bowing patterns, adding in funky bow patterns. Again, a little bit of a brain puzzle, but you're just adding more complexity while still having a long tone somewhere in there to prep for the next group of fast notes. And then you could do a technique that Atar does that I really love, which is after you've gone through the whole passage like that, you take that passage, you play it extremely slowly, using the bowings that you're going to use, and you can stop and you can fix. Then you go back again, and you do it extremely slowly, but you cannot stop and fix anything. Then you go back again, and it's a little faster, not stopping, fixing. Then again, a little faster. And then you're up to tempo. You're playing it. You're not stopping and fixing. And then you do it again, letting everything go and making the top priority the shape of the music, so that the music, in the end, the other thing too is, if I do find that if we force technique for too long, obviously you have to, at some point you have to pull technique away from music for a little bit just to examine what's happening. But if you have a concept, a sound in mind, usually that makes things a lot easier technically. It's amazing to me that if I think of, I'm good, and I struggle with something technically, and I'm like, just forget it, just sing the passage, don't even pick up the viola, just sing it. And then I imitate when I'm singing. It's quite easy. I'm like, it's natural. It was there all along. So,
right. Well, about left hand, are there any recommendations for violists with short arms and fingers to gain better shifting technique? I would say expanding it to all viola technique, not only shifting. Just how do you deal with being really hard to reach?
Yeah, that with the bow, I would say, so if you have shorter arm with the bow, and I do this, I don't go past here. I never bow to the tip of my bow. And that's because it's hard to see, but I'm almost at a straight arm and it's there. I don't go past my straight arm, because if I do, that involves a shoulder movement, and people with long arms who tell you to go past, it's like, well, you're not the one who has to do it. So I really find it unhelpful. It puts in a whole bunch of stuff, and it's like, you lose a little bit of real estate, but you know what? That makes you love the bottom. So with the people who don't have quite long arms for a full bow, don't use a full bow. Find out where your tip is, and it will be different for each string. It gets shorter on the C string. For left hand, that's a different story. And it's a tough question. I would say as you're learning, do everything you can to, as soon as you're forcing something, it's really, you're not going to play well. You know what I mean? Like if you're forcing a reach, you're going to damage your hand. But you do need to be able to use the fourth finger. So in the first position, that can be a problem for some short fingers. I would say watch what happens to your left hand frame when you play, say, usually it's a whole step between the third and the fourth finger that can cause a problem. Watch what happens to your hand frame. If you're double jointed and your fourth finger locks, if with the lock you can pull out of it easily, that's fine. I know people with I have double jointed fingers. I can't pull out of it though. So I never allow my fourth finger to lock. If I see it do this, in fact, I won't even do it for you because I've trained my fingers to not go in that position. It is simply not allowed. My finger must always feel like it's bent here. So figuring out, I would say I never did step check or anything like that. I'm thinking of what could help, but I'm thinking of, playing pieces, but expanding that reach, just gently expanding, but never allowing it to be incorrect. And maybe that means you have to use different fingerings for a while. I don't know. I just think it's dangerous to allow, to force something that's not going to happen. And let me tell you, with all this being said, I know, I don't want to say the person because I don't want them to feel self-conscious, but I know someone with very short arms and very short fingers that plays the viola better than most long-armed and long-fingered people. So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you can't do something because of the physique. It's all about intelligently and finding the natural strengths with the instrument.
Right. Yep. About the right hand, someone says, anytime I perform, my bow hand shakes and it makes a very bad sound. How do I avoid that? And how do I look confident when performing? I would say how I feel confident, because that would probably affect how you look.
Yes. That question is, I have such compassion for that question because we have all been there. We have all had performances with shakes and everything. So a couple things with this. Your bow is going to shake. That's just what it is. So it's about the mind frame. One thing is, I often find bow shaking beautiful. Let's look at it from a couple of perspectives. If you're a person in the audience and you're listening to somebody who is shaking, or even if you're on a judging panel and you're listening to someone who is shaking, nobody is going to be against that person. There's not, even if it is your enemy, say you have a Moriarty and their Moriarty is on stage, you are not going to wish that he fails. It simply is. I just don't think it happens. Humans, we sense that, and the audience is with you. That means that you can feel the compassion from everybody. You have support. The audience is not against you. Now, if you're the one shaking, I understand that's a terrible feeling. So what happens in the body usually is that we tense to make it stop, because we want it to stop. So we're tensing, and you know what? That makes it shake even more. So you need to be okay with the shaking, and that is a hard thing. It's an easy thing to say. It's a hard thing to do. So it's an awareness, even beforehand. I'm going to shake. My shaking will be there. If you allow space for the shaking and you allow it into part of your performance, it's no longer an enemy. It's not something that you're fighting against. And a lot of times what happens then is that it goes away. It might not. And if it doesn't, and you have to keep telling yourself, I'm shaking, but that's okay. It's okay. And then then you can think about what you're trying to say with the music instead of worrying about the shaking. You know, it might keep coming back. Oh, I'm shaking. It sounds terrible. It's like, that's okay. That's what it is. It's going to shake. It's the only way I know that, because really it's like, you know, if you meditate or you do anything, anytime you fight against anything like that, it just makes it stronger. And in your physicality, there's nothing we can do. There's no way you can accept, but EXCEPT, except for accepting it, ACCE, accepting that. And truly, I really think it's not an ugly sound. It actually can be quite beautiful, you know, and a lot of times it could fit the piece. And like we were saying with Matthew, with the Bach, allowing the vulnerability in, again, that's a beautiful thing. That to me is a beautiful thing. You're not
improvising before, right?
Huh?
Improvising on that piece before you go on stage will put you at ease.
Yeah, that's right. And then practice just of being in that situation, being in uncomfortable situations, being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Okay. More general question. What advice would you give to musicians so they can find the unique style of conveying the music to the audiences?
Wow, that's a good question. Can you repeat it for me?
What advice would you give to musicians so they can find the unique style of conveying music to the audiences?
Wow, so interesting. What an interesting question. I would say don't force it. Look, if you're playing written music that's already written, look for what the composer wants first. Dive into the world of the composer. And then, you know, after enough time, you're going to start to see what draws you and what piques your curiosity. That will be your voice. And that will be, and all of us are unique. So you're already unique, you know, and that's good enough.
That's beautiful. And who is a musician you aspire to emulate? I guess, who are the musicians who inspired you, and does it change through the years?
I love that question because I think our string heritage is such a beautiful thing. And I have a tree of teachers in my office to give to my students, because I'm sure too your students do the same thing. Of course, that's what it is to be a string person. You have a line that goes all the way back to Corelli and Vivaldi. It's such a beautiful thing that there's that. So the generation before us that makes all of what we do possible, and we're preparing things for the next generation. And what amazing place will that go? I hope somewhere amazing. For me, the most profound artist, without question, is Tara Arad. I don't know that that will ever change because it was so enormous, and we're still so close, and we do projects together, that it's a constant sort of enveloping. And he's very adventurous and kind of iconic and out of the box, that I would have been happy being just like him. Of course I'm not, because I'm me, but for sure he's the most profound, and so I feel very grateful that I got to be with him. And outside of that, really, so many artists, so many string players. I'm trying to think, I can't even think right now. So many I love visual artists. I love literature artists. People who write literature. I would say yes, that changes. Like whenever I play a piece, I try to find as many things that relate to the piece, even obliquely, and even if it's not really connected, just to sort of get me inspired. And if I'm writing a piece that I'm researching something about the topic and it can really, so there's just so much to be inspired about in our world that after a tar, it's like everybody. I feel like we can learn from everybody.
Do not name someone just because there are so many of them. Right. Well, I think that what you just said, that's also answers the question, what can someone do to deepen their understanding of emotion and expression in music, right? Go out and
yes, and it's part of living, like being aware of your own feelings and flaws. We're so flawed, and coping with that and being honest with yourself, being aware, and like, yeah, exactly like you're saying, if you see a play and they put a theme as the play of, okay, well that's a pretty big signal right there. But usually, we all have very similar flaws, or at least groups of flaws that are similar. So, we're all connected. I think we're all connected, and that is for better. That's just how it is. So in my opinion, so looking within, as well as at the way that these feelings within us are different artists portray in different ways, which of course is always going to be influenced by the time you live in. Because as you can tell now, like, wow, this is like such a different time than even 10 years ago. Can you imagine being, say you're like 90 years old? Can you imagine? I wouldn't understand the world at all. I barely understand it, and I'm not even close. Like, things change. So taking into consideration what time frame that person was in and where they were in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a question from the minors in music. How do you have any advice on how a music minor can stay involved in music after college?
Yes. So I teach a lot of non-majors. It's one of my joys at the university is we have a large, very, very smart people who love playing music. So I'm sure wherever you end up in the world, well, it depends on how big the city is, I guess, or, but wherever you end up, look for, like Seattle, I think we have quite a lot of amateur orchestras. So people who work at Microsoft during the day and then they play in the orchestra. Not look for amateur orchestras. I know there are amateur chamber festivals. So you could go to, I think like Madeline Island had one that Cavani used to run for years. I don't know who runs that now. But there are festivals out there. So look for, if you're interested in that. So those are organizations that already exist. But if you're out of school, get to know people in your community, and you could create, you could have a weekly chamber music reading with professionals and amateurs. Just because you're amateur doesn't mean you're not good. Some of my non-majors play unbelievably well. So you could have a mix of professional and amateur pizza night, chamber music reading, or you could donate your time and play at hospitals. Just staying connected to the community and creating your own a reason for playing will help. I think would help. I don't know, because we're so lucky, don't you think, Professor, that we get to make a life in music? I mean, it's such a privilege. It's really something. So, but making a community of people that you can play with.
Absolutely. Well, one very serious question from Julia Copeland of the Youth Orchestras of Fresno. if the United States would truly commit to funding arts education, what would be your dream scenario for how we include classical music so that it becomes a central part of our native culture for all children and their families?
Yeah. Wow. I love that. You know, I would start with something like El Sistema, you know, how just access to everybody. That's what I think the biggest issue is now, is that only so that if there's places where instruments can be loaned out for free to lower income families or children. I myself went to a performing arts high school and junior high, so I had theory, arts, and private lessons for free. It was part of my school. So more institutionalized, I guess is the word, which seems to be an overused word these days, but for good instead of for bad. Like, let's get some programs that are, you know, it doesn't have to be after school. Let's put it in school, you know, that learning humanities and, you know, creating art. I mean, and yes, the access, you know, if we could put more funding towards instruments and luthiers reaching out. I wonder, actually, Midori will probably have a lot to say on that, because she does a lot with that, I think. So she might even, I'd be interested.
Well, Julie actually was the person who started the sort of, the program is called Accent on Access. And it was sort of El Sistema that started in Fresno. And so I think we're thinking alike and in the same direction.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. We, even in Seattle, it's not El Sistema. We don't have that, unfortunately, but there's a school, I think it's just up the street from me, but some human being just gave the school all these instruments and then donated his time. I mean, it really just, it's amazing what can be accomplished. And I have had students from that school come to UW. It's amazing what can be accomplished.
Yeah, we'll just hope that it all happens. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and giving your wisdom to the students. Those were wonderful lessons. And I think everybody got inspired and turned into different directions of really thinking about what they're performing and how they're performing it. So,
well, thank you, and everyone, it's such a pleasure to be with you all today. So thank you so much.
We're truly grateful. Thank you. Thank you.